Welcome back to the Wet Mammal channel. On today's Spearfishing Raw, we're getting stuck into the Kawakawa, or for those outside of Fiji, the brown marbled grouper or the flowery rockcod. I've seen a couple of Kawakawa moving from ledge to ledge in this area and decided to have a dive down to see if I could spot them hiding in the reef. As I make my dive down, a Kawakawa decides to leave the shelter of his bommy and seek a new ledge or hole. This was his first mistake. Eagle-eyed viewers might also notice that there's a moo on my shooting line, which I shot a couple of minutes earlier. I don't typically keep fish on my shooting line in countries such as Fiji, where sharks are in big numbers. I'm really hoping the fish will turn back on itself and try to camouflage into the reef, but this was not the case. He peels off to his left. Making a move for his next section of reef, I tried to preempt the Kawakawa by swimming indirectly towards where I think he might move. Unfortunately for the Kawakawa, she came into the path of my gun and I pulled the trigger. The fish peels off a whole heap of line from the reel, which I let it take to prevent the spear from ripping out of the fish. I make my way up to the surface whilst keeping a bit of tension on the line now that the fish isn't running and holed up. This is to prevent the Kawakawa from going right up into a cave, making the retrieval of the spear and fish difficult or risk bending the spear. You can see this has created a bit of excitement with the fusiliers dancing around outside of the reef. On the last few meters of ascent, I keep my head straight to conserve oxygen. Whilst on the surface, catching my breath, I'm able to battle the fish in a comfortable, safe environment. Doing this on the dive could have put me at risk of a shallow water blackout on my way up. I've sped this clip up a little bit just so you don't have to sit through everything, but this kind of excitement usually draws in sharks. If you're enjoying the Spearfishing Raw series, chuck a thumbs up. It helps me gauge what kinds of content you guys want to see. On a dive like this, you could have your dive buddy dive down and shoot the fish in the hole just to ensure that you've got the fish definitely on. Thankfully, that slight amount of tension that I had on the line pays off and the fish fights himself free of the reef whilst remaining on the spear. Now I can begin the haul up to the surface and keep an eye out for sharks. You can actually see a monster coral trout appear from the reef and move to another spot. It's such an awesome feeling to have such a weighty fish on the end of your spear as you pull him up from the depths. You'll notice that I don't really celebrate until I've got the fish ickied and bled on the surface. Until it's a done dusted deal, anything could happen. By the time that a silver-tip shark decides to show up, it's already too late and the Kawakawa is near the surface. I'm convinced that I've bent the spear shaft at this point. I gently pull the fish to the surface as it is likely to have one last attempt to get away from me as he gets closer, and I don't want him to tear off now. I grab the base of the jaw from inside, avoiding the Kawakawa's vicious spiky gill rakers, and brain the fish. This Kawakawa has a thick skull, that's for sure. Next up, it's time to bleed the fish. Look at the absolute size of this thing's head. My knife's struggling to cut through its gill rakers, they're so thick. It's an absolutely awesome Kawakawa. A quick show to the Salt Lake Lodge crew to show that we are eating well tonight. So there we have it, a monster Kawakawa. It's amazing how a creature can be so beautiful yet so absolutely horrifying at the same time. The inside of its mouth is like something straight out of a horror movie, and I definitely wouldn't want to be a fish getting sucked into that thing. That's it for another Spearfishing Raw. I hope you've enjoyed, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome spearfishing action. Stay wet, stay fed. Catch ya.